Hi, I'm Matt Sweet Staniszewski, and this is America Period. I'm here with Pat Phillips, running for Washington County Controller. How's it going so far?
Well, it's things are really picking up. It's I'm trying to hit 40 to 50 to and up doors knocking every day, to just get the word out about my platform, what I believe in. And then just, all the meetings, the gun shows, all the social activities.
The events and everything. I've been on a county campaign trail quite a few times myself. So.
And it takes a lot of energy.
Yes, it does. Especially, and events aren't just planned like, 10 a.m. is Peters Township, 11 a.m. is North Shore. No, it's like, okay, you go to Peters Township at 11, and then you're way down in the Mon Valley afterwards.
Yeah,
right?
Your Outlook calendar is kind of useless because there's so much overlap, and you don't want to leave anyone hanging. You really want to make sure that you can spend time with everyone. Sure. And that's really, and I'm trying to do that, but it's not always easy.
And Pat, what are you hearing on the street so far when you're going door to door? I see it hitting that pavement left and right. You came here hitting the pavement. So
I think when I. The funny thing is, and I really appreciate this, is that I would say probably 95% of the people that I'm able to talk to want to hear what I have to say.
Good.
And there's questioning, which I love to answer questions because I will stand behind what I believe in.
What are some of the more common questions that you're hearing right now?
Well, I think you get some of the standard ones where they try to trick you. What day is the election? May 20th. So a lot of people will try to ask that. And then I think a lot of the people, just because of some of the strange events that have occurred within that office over the past few years.
Well, in the county, even in general.
Yeah,
I
I always try to keep things focused to the position, because that would be my first part of the work that I would need to get done.
And Pat, I'm glad you mentioned that. In your words, for those that don't know what a county controller even does,
well,
could you explain that to our viewers?
And funny, because that's the second question I get asked the most, is that, so the way I try to explain things is this: within county politics, and maybe it should even be that political, because this is really financial work that needs to be done, right? And within county politics in the state of Pennsylvania, you have two financial offices. Mm-hmm. You have the treasurer and you have the controller.
Right.
So within the treasurer's office, you take in the tax dollars and such. But on the other side, the controller is actually paying the bills. And they're also auditing all of the other offices within. Right. Those are the two, that's the majority of the work involved. So I do like explaining that to people because a lot of people don't know. And then they're saying, so basically, if you get elected, you'll be the Doge. And I'm like, I guess that's kind of a way to look at it, but not exactly.
No, not exactly. I mean, the controller position's been around for as long as the county's been in existence. So it's not like anything that's being newly created or anything like that. Why are you running?
Well, there's probably a couple reasons I'm running. And let me start by explaining my background a little bit.
Yes.
So, when I graduated from Washington Jefferson College, and I'm a proud president. I really love the fact that I went to W&J.
Great school.
And you do get noticed when you say your resume says W&J. Interviews, even when I've been with a company for a while and I would, get moved to another position. Oh, you went to W&J, and, it kind of gets looked at, almost like with a junior Ivy League status,
Nice. Very nice.
And that kind of makes me proud to be part of that,
100%. It's great. I used to work at W&J for a while. It's a great educational institution.
It just, and nothing but really, really good memories from W&J. Yes. And so when I got out of college, I went to work for what was known back then. It's now BNY Mellon, but it was known as Mellon Bank.
Right.
Spent several years there. Most of my work was done on the financial side with lending, deposits, but primarily lending, where within the lending world, the biggest part of lending is making sure that, from payments, from debits and credits, you've got a balance.
Well,
right?
You have, analyzing credit risk and those types of items as well. Balance sheets, if someone's coming to you for a loan, I mean.
So, and I had become, after doing what I would call the basic work, learning the ins and outs of the systems, learning the functions of lending and deposits, I became a business analyst. So
nice.
Within the world of business analysis.
And this was at?
This was still at Mellon. Yeah, still with Mellon. And from that time, I started doing audits. I was auditing systems. I was auditing areas.
Nice.
And this kind of it was a snowball that's starting to build over time.
Right.
And then ironically, I got a phone call and from two different companies. One was Fiserv. And if you look today, Fiserv is, all three of these companies are Fortune 500
Not to be confused with Pfizer.
All the time I get that, And Fiserv was they were calling me, and then PNC was calling me, and I'm like, and I flipped a coin basically because PNC at that time had slightly better health insurance.
Fair.
So
fair.
I went into it. It was more like systems for building reports and such, but it was also a case of, once again, auditing other financial areas within PNC. So I was there for a little bit over a year, and then Fiserv said, "Hey, Pat, our insurance is changing." And I really liked the message such a good company. The Pittsburgh division was amazing. And when I got to the Pittsburgh division, I was working within the loans, helping people with conversions, doing system audits. Like we would get a new client.
Sure.
And when that new client would say, "Oh, hey, we're having trouble getting our systems balanced. What does your system do for X, Y, and Z?"
Right.
I would be consultative in that nature, as well as go in, look at their books, look at their numbers. And people always, I always joke around, the word was oob. In which oob is
familiar with that one.
It's just out of balance.
Gotcha.
So in banking,
never heard that.
So you're always reviewing the numbers for oobs.
Okay, that's fair.
Payments in process, oob. But something
is better than oops, though, right?
100%. You don't want an oops going into an audit ever.
Right.
And at that time, I started noticing, within our own systems, we were not always in compliance with federal regulations. So, and call me a glutton for punishment. I started reading the Federal Register. So the federal
you had a little bit of time on your hands there, Pat.
It wasn't even that. Maybe it was just a quirky fascination with how the government works.
Sure, absolutely.
And I recommend looking at the Federal Register because you've got X number of categories that can be from farming to banking to just across the board of industry within the country.
Well, even take a look at different grant opportunities and so forth. That's really where it starts.
And what that starts is in legislature, when people start talking, okay, we need to do this for the banking industry. We could talk about, Reg Z, which is truth in lending, and so these laws get built and then it's converted into legalese. But you'll also notice when you get through 45, 50 pages towards the end, you've got these little ear tags and you're like, now I see how this kind of works, because in the background, so a senator from here or a legislator from here is working with this person over here. Hey, if we can get this banking regulation passed, can we cut some corn subsidies in Iowa?
Of course.
So there's a lot of backroom stuff and that we don't think about every day, right?
Right.
But when you see that, it all starts to churn.
You start connecting the dots, and very famous in politics, just follow the money.
Yeah, 100%.
Follow the money.
Follow the money. And sometimes, because everything is so huge, that gets a little bit tough to do.
Right. What's the county budget right now?
I think the county budget right now is in the ballpark of $325 million, I believe, somewhere in that.
Just the general fund.
We're
not even talking special funds, with grants and the county serving as a pass-through.
And that's the other thing, not to digress, but I think bringing to this position is you have to look at the county as a $320 million
business.
Yeah. And to me, that is that simple. And if you don't have that background in auditing and understanding how businesses work and how the checks and balances go on a macro level, I think that actually helps you on the micro level. When you start going into other offices and auditing those offices, having that background, knowing the little things knowing the gray matter, when in something that seems so black and white, there's little pieces of gray matter.
Definitely. I'm a certified grant writer in an EDFP. Yes, there are so many, like you mentioned, nuances or that gray matter, if you will, hidden in between the intricacies of those departments and the funding and the programs and the projects. And
so, going forward with that, I remember going into the CEO of the Pittsburgh division. He goes, by the way, you're my new regulatory guy. And for just nice. From doing my homework, I'm like, well, that's a big load of responsibility,
Right.
And he was jokingly calling me his lawyer. And I'm like,
time out.
We don't want that. And so we developed a whole program when we would have our client conferences. it went from these little 5-minute pieces that people would do before about regulation to I was having 3 different sessions with 45 and 50 people attending.
Nice.
Just because I wanted to amplify the importance of being compliant. I couldn't tell them what to do, but I could say, here's what this reg is saying.
You did your part in educating and providing that to all those departments, right?
Absolutely. And the feedback on that was tremendous. So that made me, I'm like, okay, maybe this inner geek in me there's something to this, right? Right. And that just led me into doing more lending product management. There was always an element of the audit and balance between everything I did. And then as the Pittsburgh division was starting to go away, Fiserv was starting to compartmentalize it and bring things to a more macro level, like I used before.
Right. Yes.
And some of the systems in Pittsburgh were becoming a little outdated. The Pittsburgh division went away, and then I went into Education Management Corporation for a little while.
Okay.
And where I worked on financial aid and student lending, which once again,
it's all right in your wheelhouse.
Auditing,
there. Right?
It's all right there. And then finally, Fiserv called me back to their mortgage division, which I was working on. When we would sell the product, I was a project manager within where all, they weren't my direct employees, but on the road, they were my dotted line employees.
Gotcha. So
we would meet with the clients and we were constantly working with them on their processes, on their balancing, on their education of the new product. So there's a certain, there's a flow to my career.
Yes. I definitely would agree with you on that. And you really touched upon all of the areas, the auditing, the federal funding, the regulatory issue, which a lot of people don't realize. You get a grant for $500,000. They don't realize that. Yeah, you have to do a federal audit for that, for even like a nonprofit.
Well, even within the county, this is where I get a question asked of me. The only question that and people try to put a negative spin on has been, my brother is the clerk of courts, right?
And I was going to ask you about that, Ray Phillips. And I've known Ray a long time. Great guy, and so happy he's in that position.
So, and I'm proud of my brother. We worked hard on that election. And that office has changed in 2 years.
Yes, he's done great work there.
You go into that office, people are smiling, they're happy, the work is getting done. There's no negativity within that office.
Right.
And that's the other thing. Listen, I am the most optimistic, happy person. And, if I take over a situation, I don't want any of my employees on Sunday evening having that sick feeling in their stomach. I want them to be good going to work on Monday morning.
Excited on Monday morning. That's
because
huge.
And what we need to do within the Office of Controller is, hey, we have checklists. Because the biggest thing of auditing, you narrow it down, is a checklist, right? Let's make sure that we're getting our work done. Our payments are being made on time. Mm-hmm. Our audits are accurate. And tying that back in, people were asking, well, what if you have to audit your brother? Well, I say, if you've ever,
which is more than likely going to happen,
because of his office.
Yeah.
But if you've ever worked in a corporation in America, from small corporations to large, in particular middle to large companies, which I have,
right.
Let's say you're the leader of a loan accounting group, mm-hmm. and I'm in charge of the auditors, and I would be reporting directly up to a controllership up through the CFO.
Sure.
But you're my best friend. Okay. Well, Pat, he's your best friend. What are you going to, it's so simple. I mean, literally there are bylaws in place in most places. All I would do is have another financial person look at the final findings and have them sign off instead of me. But I will be the first to tell you, if I would find that my brother's numbers were out of balance, I'd light him up. Because and I'd say, hey.
Oh, I love it. You said you'd light him up.
I'd light him up. But listen, anytime there are, and once again, it goes back to the OOB, right?
Yep, right.
There's out of balance conditions.
Right.
First of all, when you find them, you go back to the department and you work with them to fix it.
Makes sense. Communication.
Yes.
Right?
And that's the key to life is communication.
100% agree.
You can't carry an attitude or negativity into your work because there's a domino effect to that. You build resentment, and I don't want resentment. Like I said, Sunday night, I don't want you to have that feeling in your stomach when you go to work the next day. Oh my God, I got to go do this. No, because that's not going to happen.
That's very important.
There will be, and if people are having issues in their life, I want you to come talk to me, because I'm as open can be that way. So there's that element, and this goes way beyond politics. And what I believe politically and fiscally is obviously important, but the people doing the work in that office, they're important too.
Oh, 100%.
And I just don't see over, prior years and whatnot. I guess the best way to say it is just, I want to mitigate chaos.
That's a good way of describing it, because let's be real, in past years, there's been a lot of chaos up the county building. And some departments are improving, and
yeah, and I think
there's new chaos at times, but
even from the political layout, I think, if you study paradigms, right? And if I ask you to explain a truck or a boat, and I'm painting a picture of a boat, you may have a rowboat in your mind. I have a battleship in my head, right?
Right.
So you have to think of that as well. And politically, people are that way too.
Yes.
We get caught up in the cognitive dissonance of politics. We believe this, and it's only this. And then we believe, it's like, hey guys, let's take a breath for a moment here, because we got a job to do, right?
Right.
And within that cognitive dissonance, I think we have to remember that our opinions truly are opinions. They're not facts. But state your opinions, but back them with facts,
That's the important thing. Like I see a lot of things out online, prove it. And even with Doge, and I know we're kind of veering off for a second here, but, with Doge, they're putting everything online. It's very transparent. There's the proof.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, some things you would like to improve in the office. What's part of your vision for the controller's office?
Sometimes I like to get as much value out of a word as I can. So
okay,
one of the using one word is clarity.
I like it.
So I think when you are running an office, just like you would be at a corporation, you want to have your people happy to work. You want them to efficiently work. And that's the other thing. When you are not getting things done and payments made on time, the efficiency of your budgetary dollar is being lost. And that's people's tax dollars that are being wasted.
Right.
And you might not think of it. I think in the corporate world, we call that soft dollar waste.
Right.
And I can't have that, because that adds up, and that's bad on the bottom line of your tax dollar. And this is all part of what really got me, what? I should do this. I should run for this office. And I think, beyond, when I look at that, what the other candidates have, I've got over 30 years of doing so much more.
Pat, are you looking at my notes here? I swear, well, okay. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And you have a very extensive resume, very impressive. What separates you from the other candidates?
Well,
aside from,
I'm first of all, I'm not really a mudslinger. I don't like to be that person.
I agree. No, and I'm not asking. I don't roll like that either.
It's very simple. I think just from meeting and talking with other people, I think I really have great communication skills. And I like to be clear in my message. And also, I'm not afraid to answer your questions. Ask any question. Anyone out there that sees this, you see me, ask me your question. I will answer it. I'll hold up my card, and I have everything that I believe in a concise little platform. And I will back that up. And I think I have that over the other candidates.
Nice.
And the fact that mitigating chaos is so important to me.
Especially in politics. And just in general. I've dealt with it myself throughout a 20-year career in politics. So yes, being able to mitigate that, and just working with your employees, finding the value in them, and working through those miscommunications.
Well, yes, and just to dovetail off of that is that, when I talk about paradigms, right, is to make sure, especially you're within an office of a few people to several people, you want to make sure that you're clear in your message so their paradigms don't shift. They all have the same message that you're trying to put out. And I've seen it so many times that, like I said, you're seeing a rowboat and I'm seeing a battleship.
Exactly.
We're talking about a boat.
I kind of like to sink battleships, So. But So what are some other issues in the office that you would like to solve? I know in one of your press releases you had mentioned, there's some problems. What are some of those problems?
Some of the problems where payments aren't being made on time.
Why is that?
You know what? That's a really good question, because that should be automatic. That should be template.
Right.
There should, here's our boilerplate. What we do in this office, and if there's an issue of not making payments on time, let's fix it.
Correct. Right.
And, and this is a little bit crazy, but this is my thought, right?
Fair.
Let's talk. I dare anyone who's running in this election to show their credit score. Because if you have a good credit score, it means you make your own payments. And your payments are made on time. If you don't have a good credit score, you can't make county payments.
That is a great point.
And I will tell you this right now. Experian, I will pull it up in front of you. 820 is my credit score.
Very impressive.
And I have no shame. I will talk about that anywhere. But if your credit score is, say, in the low 700s, below that,
you're right.
Why are you trying to run for a position in county office to pay bills?
That totally makes sense.
Hold people accountable for doing that work when they can't do it at home.
Just for the record, mine's 810. I can pull that up and prove facts there, just so everyone knows.
And it's not even about being a braggart, right?
Right. No,
it's about this is what I think.
If you're not paying your mortgage and you're not paying all your other bills, electricity, utilities, and all of this stuff.
When you are everyone, this is what's so great about being American. I think we forget sometimes you are entitled to your opinions, but when you make that vote, you got to make it for who can do the job, right?
Policy, right?
But it ends up sometimes being a popularity contest.
It does. I've been there myself. I get it,
but
man.
You think when your tax dollars are being used, you would think that the two financial positions, there should be a set of qualifications required. When I look down the list, when I look at the responsibilities of the controllership, when I talk with people in local government, I think my qualifications they stand out.
Now, Pat, have you ever been in an elected position before, or is this your first time?
It's I've always been, oddly, once again in geek-like fashion.
I can relate to that.
Fascinated by the process. I'm fascinated by I'm fascinated by history. The process of life, because that's history recorded.
Sure.
Although we skew it sometimes, I'm still fascinated. I'm fascinated by the mechanical nature of things. Mm-hmm. I want to see how it ticks, how it works. So I'm that way with politics as well.
Dude, you read the Federal Registry. I mean, that alone, I don't meet too many people that will sit there and say that to me.
Well, it's not going to blow your mind.
No, that impresses me, though, because I know the Federal Registry. So
it's really an education on what's going on in America.
Right.
And I will even go as far sometime to where if you really want to see what's going on in Washington in particular, mm-hmm. I try to avoid some of the commercial news stations and kind of look at C-SPAN a little bit.
Oh, that's where you're going to get right at the horse.
And they show it while it's happening.
Yes.
And once again, that inner geek says, wow, there it is.
You're my kind of nerd. You know that?
And then when you know that's what's happening.
Right.
Then you can start to color it your own way and
mm-hmm.
say, okay, and you're not getting swayed. So when you see it come out of the horse's mouth, there it is. And that's just my way, and I would kind of bring this element to that office.
100%. Are you doing any fundraisers or any types of events coming up?
I do have my first fundraiser, which will be this Friday at 7:00 at the.
All right, this isn't going to air in time for that, but
it's at the Hofbräu in Canonsburg. The Hofbräu is it's a small place.
It's an institution for the Canonsburg area.
Wings in particular.
100%.
If you like wings, and I'm a foodie.
Same here, dude.
Major foodie.
We got to start hanging out more often, man. What the heck?
And it's a place you have to go. It has that Cheers-like effect,
mm-hmm.
where the people there are amazing, and everyone just sits and talks and laughs.
Right.
Once again, I have to say the greatest wings I've ever eaten, and just friends. So a lot of people are coming. I hope I want them, but it's more than a fundraiser. It's a meet and greet. I want them to know me. The people that are showing up that don't know me that well, listen, here I am. And like I said, I'm the guy that pulls out my credit score, right? There's no BS with me. It's just how I've lived my life. I've never even attempted to walk a crooked path because my late father, who I miss dearly, I know he'd smack me in the back of my head.
Fair, very fair.
And that's, I will always take that road. Am I perfect? No, I'm not perfect.
Nobody's perfect in life. I mean,
but I attempt to take the high road. I attempt to be good to people just because that's how I was raised.
Now, and you bring up another good point. There's going to be issues up at the county building that you're going to have to deal with politically. How do you plan to navigate those waters? Because that is a skill in itself.
It's, I don't want to curse, but it's the no BS thing,
I understand, yep.
You have to watch, listen, politics is no different in life. There's something political with almost every aspect in where you walk.
Yes, 100%.
And once again, this comes down to paradigms, right? There's gray matter. People they see, when you talk about the color blue, there's faded blue. So these people are over here believing in faded blue.
Dude, look how many blues.
Yes. But people over here are looking at navy blue.
Right.
So, well, guess what, guys? Let's find consensus here because they're both blue. So let's just kind of think about how we want to look at the color blue.
To meet in the middle there.
Because there's going to be within those colors of blue commonality.
Yes.
So let's start with commonality and let's work from there and let's try to find common ground. And, and that's where olive branches can start to be handed out, right?
Love it. 100%. Yes. I've never been one to, sling mud at a campaign or anything like that. So I highly respect the route you're going even right now during the election because there's no one on the Democrat ticket, correct?
Well, there's no one technically, but the rumor is that a former Democrat who is now a member of the Green Party is going to run in November.
Under like an independent?
Yes, kind of like an independent type filing.
Wouldn't be surprised about that. And then you have 3 other opponents right now. Mm-hmm. What else would separate you from those 3 other opponents?
Well, what I said, my background, I think
your background is impeccable.
95%.
Yes.
I have that over them because, at least 2 of those candidates have zero financial background.
I can attest to that.
And listen, but they have the right to run for a position too. So that's,
yeah.
And I just think, what's going on currently, and I, inherited from the prior, administration of that office, has really put a black eye. And I think just the, just lack of consistency with the payments. I think, I've lived that, I've done that, and
right.
I've succeeded at that.
Right.
And once again, that's why I'm running. I know it's cliche. I know it sounds, I want to make a difference. I do want to make a difference. I really do.
I totally can relate.
And there's passion. I have a passion for that.
And I see it. I see the energy right here.
It's why, that's why I'm coming to do this stuff. It's why, there's just there's just something. I want to do this and I want the taxpayers to get the bottom line best bang for their buck, and just not have waste. Because
amen to that one.
And that's what's really kind of pushed me over the edge into running for this office.
Nice. Pat, do you have a website, Facebook page? How can people get
there are 2 places. You can go out and you could friend me on my Pat Phillips Facebook page,
right,
which ties into my Instagram. And you could also go to my Pat Phillips for Washington County Controller page.
Nice.
I'm running them kind of in a very similar fashion right now.
Fair.
Just so that everyone is getting the same news. So you could use any of those. If you see me on the street, you grab one of my cards, read the back of it, talk to me. I will talk to anybody, anytime. If you get my phone number and you call me at 3 a.m, I'll probably still talk to you. Because I believe in this. Like I said, I've done it. I've been there. I've seen it. I don't know how many times in my life, and I've been really good at fixing it. Mm-hmm. And that's just what I want to bring to the office.
Now, aside from, raising money to help fund a campaign, how else would you like to have, help from people? How can people help you?
Well, anybody that wants to help with the campaign, that would be great. But word of mouth. When you see posts from me, if you see me posting one of my cards that says Pat Phillips for Washington County Controller, share it. Share it once a week.
Right. Yep.
Because even though when I say I stand on my platform, I stand on my experience. This is the election that's a year after a presidential election.
Right.
Generally the lowest turnout for local government.
Yes.
And there are 4 people running. So that pie is a lot smaller.
Right.
What I need to do is really get as many votes by that and have that high concentration in a low turnout.
Sure.
That's where I need your help, guys. Trust me, if I win this election, I will do my damnedest and I will bust my ass to make it right. And you have my word on that. Also, I would never make this like this would be 2 terms tops. If I would win, would not do more than 2 terms.
So you're telling our viewers right now you're only going to do 2 terms.
I'm going to follow what Dwight Eisenhower did in the 50s.
Nice.
And I am a believer for certain positions with term limits, maybe not all. I think anything legislative that would be helpful to overall. That's just an opinion of mine. But for this position, it will be 2 terms. And I think if I can leave my mark of positivity and accuracy, that would be hopefully that would be a model for people running going forward.
Oh, 100%. Pat, you've been a breath of fresh air, so much information. I learned so much about you just in our short conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to add or share with folks?
Like I said, in this country, we have freedom. I've traveled around a lot. And once again, I think we all see freedom differently, but that's part of freedom. You could view your freedom as you wish. But we got to respect that freedom because there's a lot of people that sacrificed a lot for that.
Amen.
There's also, so when I'm saying that means get out and vote. I know it's the year after a presidential election, but still, your freedom really depends on you getting out and voting because that represents you. So that little bit of you that makes one whatever of the votes and what's going on, that's your voice. So when you get angry at the government, or if you're happy with the government, your words are moot unless you actually vote.
Exactly.
And so just listen, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever.
Right. Vote.
Because that's how your voice gets heard.
It always blows my mind. People don't realize there's an election every year, folks. And you're right. The one after the presidential election is always, the turnout's awful usually. So,
and let's change that. I dare you people to vote this year. So.
Oh, we got a challenge here. I think that could be like I don't do TikTok or anything, but that could be like a TikTok challenge to go vote.
We could put up the little counter, with it.
I love it. I love it. Pat, you've been great to chat with today.
Listen, I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you so much. And continue to follow us on Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, the whole 9, America, period. I'm Matt Sweets Staniszewski. I'm here with Pat Phillips for Controller. And we look forward to how the outcome of the election is going to go.
Hey, and make the most of your day, everyone. Have a great day.
Amen. Thanks again, brother.
Thank you.